Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good morning.
So let's begin.
Yeah.
So I welcome all the faculty, principals, trust members, stakeholders, and the participants for today's 2 days workshop on implementation of national education policy. Here, the first day, we are very much grateful that we have amongst us our esteemed Professor S.M. Shivaprasad, sir, who was Director, Karnataka State Higher Education Academy, Dharwad, and Professor, International Center for Material Sciences, KSHEA, Bengaluru. So as of the technology, he has agreed that he will be giving us a talk on philosophy of NEP. So here, I'd like to bring to notice of everyone that the participating institutions are 10 degree colleges of Seshadipram Group of Institution. So Seshadipram Group of Institution was founded originally in 1930 by two lady educational enthusiasts of Seshadipuram, and we are here celebrating our 91st year. So we have in Karnataka for 9 decades, and by grace of God and well wishers, we hope will continue this legacy. So we have now started from 1930, 20 children in the 2 Mangalore tiled rooms. Now we have around more than 25,000 across 34 institutions in Bangalore, Mysore, Tumkuru, and Mandya. And we have from kindergarten till PhD. And the ultimate goal of the trust is to nurture knowledge that will lead to happiness, peace, harmony, and prosperity. So I welcome before our esteemed speaker start his talk, I'd like to introduce that Professor S.M. Shivaprasad, sir, was born in Bengaluru in 1957 and is a son of literary couple late Professor Urushvedra Swami and late Professor Lalitamba Swami of Karnataka University. Scholastic, DSc Honoris Causa from BSK University, Ballari, Commonwealth Postdoctoral Fellow, Department of Physics, University of Sussex, UK, Postdoc Study, CSIR Fellow at IIT Delhi, PhD on Thin Films, Karnataka University, MSc from Karnataka University, BSc from Karnataka University, and as I could see, BSc Physics major. So definitely we will be happy to understand what is this major and minor under NEP. Professional, Director, Karnataka State Higher Education, Dharwad since 2017, Professor and Scientist JNCSR since 2007, Scientist NPL New Delhi and Chief Scientist and Head Surface Physics and Nanostructures in 1985 to 2007, and Postdoctoral Researcher, CSIR Scientific Pool Officer, and he is into different posts, and to mention specially visiting positions in United Nations, visiting scientist at Rutgers University, US, United Nations Fellow at Tokyo University, Japan, and visiting scientist at University of Ulm in Germany. Awards, Young Scientist Award for Physical Sciences from the President of India, CSIR 92, Honorary Doctorate and DSR from BSK University, Ballari, Honorary Fellowship of Karnataka Science and Technology Academy, CNR Rao Oration Award 2010, Raja Ramanna Karnataka State Government Senior Scientist Award, Outstanding Scientist Award from CSIR, NPL 2005, Distinguished Lectureship Award, Superconductivity and Material Science Prize, Medal Lecture Award, Materials Society of India, Lucknow, and Fellowship he has Commonwealth, Boycott, Rutgers, University of Ulm, United Nations, RACCAM, National Merit, and his profile is never ending. So it's so elaborate that if we start reading, we'll be taking out his time to listen to his enlightened talk. Along with that, I invite our chief guest for tomorrow, Professor B. Thimmegowda, sir, Vice Chairman, Karnataka State Higher Education, Sri Gopal Krishna Joshi, sir, Executive Director, and our esteemed Director, Karnataka State Higher Education is already here and he is giving us online, Professor S.M. Shivaprasad, sir. Our patrons, Shri N.R. Panditaraja, sir, President ACT, Shri T.S. Henjarappa, sir, Vice President ACT, Shri W.H. Anil Kumar, sir, Vice President ACT, Shri B.M. Parthasarathy, sir, Treasurer ACT, our Nadoja, Dr. Udepi Krishna, sir, Honorable General Secretary, Sheshadipram Educational Trust, Fellow World Academy of Productivity Science, Technocrat, Educationist and Social Activist, Shri S. Narayan, sir, Honorary Joint Secretary, sir, and Shri M.S. Natraj, sir, Honorary Assistant Secretary, sir. And all our participating institution, Professor Meera H.N. Sheshadipram College, Professor Vidya S. Shivanar, Sheshadipram Institute of Commerce Management, Professor N.S. Satish Sheshadipram Evening Degree College, Professor Jairam Sheshadipram Academy of Business Studies, Professor C. Sumati Sheshadipram Commerce College, Professor Soumya Erappa Sheshadipram Degree College, Dr. Pranita B.S. Sheshadipram Law College, Professor Jagdish G.T. Sheshadipram Degree College, and our most beloved principal, Dr. S.N. Venkatesh Sheshadipram First Grade College. We welcome all of you and all our esteemed faculties, colleagues, teachers, administrators to this online workshop. So I now request on behalf of Sheshadipram Group of Institution, Professor S.M. Shivaprasad, sir, to kindly enlighten us with the philosophy of NEP. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Shantanuji, very much. I hope you're able to hear me clearly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. Before I start, I always want to make a small request. I want to request all of you to keep your videos on if possible, because it's very difficult to speak without seeing any faces and the expressions on the faces, right? So as a teacher, we all want to see the face of the students, the eyes of the student, and then try to see. Of course, you are not students, but still it will be nice for me if the audience is also, if I'm also able to look at the audience. So because I have a small strip of people who are speaking, I mean, who are attending. So thank you, Dr. Satyamangala, sir. Okay, thank you very much. Bharat, yeah, others, so may I request you to, yeah, Manjunath, Professor Manjunath, very nice to see you. Yeah, a couple of them. Maybe Raji Pillai, madam, also can switch on video. Vidya Sagar, thank you, sir, very much. Yeah. So this gives me a little bit of motivation, right? So that so I'm requesting you to do if it is possible. Unless you are in your house and in your night dress or something, you don't have to do it. But otherwise, you can please switch on your videos. Okay. Good morning, all. Good morning, all. Thank you very much, Professor Shantanu Das, for giving me this opportunity, because I've been an admirer of the Sheshadri Education Trust for a long time. We have been hearing the name for such a long time that it's an honor to be a part of this. I had also visited your college quite some time ago, maybe almost a decade ago, but probably now it's an opportunity for me to meet all of you, at least virtually. Okay, probably now that the corona is almost over, I'll also probably visit your institution sometime and interact with the wonderful teachers that you have, because you've been doing a yeoman service for the last more than 91 years, as you said, with amazing students, from 20 students to 25,000 students. I mean, it's an amazing journey. I'm sure you have still a very, very long journey to go to help the education in India. Friends, so I'll be speaking. I know that there are so many webinars nowadays that it's becoming terribly boring to attend all the webinars one after the other. But I don't leave the opportunity. When I get an opportunity to torture teachers, I always take it up, because I've also been tortured by many teachers in my life. So whenever I get an opportunity, I utilize that opportunity. Okay, friends, we are at a very interesting topic, in the sense that the new education policy, with a lot of confusions, a lot of aspirations, and a lot of apprehensions, right? So we don't know what is this policy, how it will be implemented, what will happen, is a big challenge for us, and it continues to be there. I'm sure this confusion will be there for some time before we all evolve a very interesting process. So what I'll try to do today is just talk about the spirit of the philosophy, right? Of the philosophy of the new education policy. I'm sure, I'm sure you'll appreciate the necessity or the need for such a policy and the way it has to go. Okay, so what I'll start doing is start sharing my screen with you with my PPT. Okay, right. Okay. I hope you can all see my PPT. Yeah. Can you read it?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Right. So friends, what I'm going to do is let's look at this, right? We all went through this amazing phase, okay, a lifetime disaster. The COVID really affected so much. It hurt us. So many of our close nears and dears were, we have lost them. Okay. And not only that, every system has collapsed in some form or the other. So, and we are grateful to these two kinds of warriors, which I see here, the border warriors and the health warriors. The border warriors, who protected us from the aggression of our irresponsible neighbor, and then we had our health warriors who have helped us survive, live. Okay, otherwise probably so many more deaths could have happened, but we have done a wonderful job. But now that the COVID is almost, we have seen the back of the COVID. Of course, we need to be a little bit more careful to make sure that it doesn't occur again. The third wave doesn't come. Okay, if we can take a little bit of care, what will be important is to rebuild India. And rebuilding is not enough, but probably reimagining India is very, very important. So how do we look at reimagining India? Okay, how do we see this as an opportunity to think of a new way of building in India? So we know that the governments are taking a lot of interest in this, trying to rebuild India, reimagine India. So who is going to reimagine India is that it is the knowledge warriors, means all the teachers. The teachers are the knowledge warriors, okay, who are going to rebuild and reimagine India. Okay, so there is a huge responsibility on all of us. Okay, what we were doing a wonderful job, but that is not enough now. We need to do something more. We need to do something more important in the future, right? So again, I see all the videos switched off. Okay, I understand. I'm troubling you a lot, but it'll be nice if I can see the videos. Yeah, I'll keep requesting this. Okay, fine. So let's think about how the role of the knowledge warriors and how we are going to rebuild it, right? So because India cannot be built by politicians, it cannot be done by economists, it cannot be done by anybody, but everything what happens in the classrooms, in the educational institutions, and by amazing trusts like the Seshadripuram Education Trust and the universities, etc., etc. These are the places where India is going to be rebuilt. So this is what we need to understand this, but this curve is very important. All of us are very, how do I say, very interested in our country. We are very patriotic. Okay, we want our country to grow, but look at these curves. This gives us an idea of what is the motivation we should have. Look at the first curve on the left side is the GDP curve. Look at, I've shown only 3 where we can compare. The world one is in the green color, the world GDP growth over the years. This is a little bit old data, but it gives you the trend. And see here in about 2005, then in between the blue one is the China's curve, and then you look at the India's curve. Okay, this is the GDP per capita. You see, somewhere around 1991, India and China were almost the same. But see, it was very important that you see how the China is taken off from that time. So, and then we are also growing, but not enough, right? So it's very important. So we need, and China is very comparable because they have a similar population, they have similar problems, and they were similar just in 1990. Okay, even 1990, we were very, very similar in all respects. In fact, yeah, so now compared to that, you also look at this curve on the right side, which tells you about the gross enrollment ratio or the GER, which is very important. So you see again, India and China. Now, see here, there was a big gap in 2005, but now by about 2012, the gap is almost closed, and India has about a ratio of about 25-26% in the higher education. I'm talking only about higher education here. See, this curve on the right side, and the top one is also very interesting. It compares different countries and the GER ratio. The GER is the blue curve, and the red one is ER. Forget it. We'll not talk about that. It is how many people actually continue studies, how many join, and then how many continue studies. But India, people who once they join, the continue studies is very high, but the number of people joining higher education itself is very less. So you can see here, China is about 44% now. India is only about 21%. Okay, sorry, India is about 26%. Okay, and then look at the USA and other people, they have 80-90%. So there's a long way to go in our journey in education. Okay, so this is the background of our mind, that we want to make our India a very strong country, right? And obviously, you can see these curves, you can see the comparison of these GR curves and the GDP curves. And they are very, very, they tell the story. They tell the actual story. Okay, now let's start, try to understand, understand how this happens, right? So now see, let's look at the history. I mean, the ancient history of mankind. See, we know that there were several civilizations, the ancient Mesopotamian civilizations about 4,000 years ago, then the Egyptian civilization about 3,000 years ago, and ancient India was also about 3,000 years. Okay, China and Israel, okay, Greece, Rome, Mayan civilization, medieval Europe, everything happened, lot of stories. And any civilization basically means the quality of education in some sense, right? So very important that education has determined civilizations of this world. Okay, now what happened? So let's look at the possible way these educations could have been had. We don't have enough evidence to say that it was exactly like this, but approximately we have some picture of telling how the, probably this is how a school in Mesopotamia looked like. Okay, and then you have what Egyptian schools look like, which with a little bit more experiential learning. Then we had our own wonderful Gurukula system of teaching. Okay, we know it was so existent for such a long time. And then the Chinese method of education, which was also different. So each of the civilizations contributed to this education. And what we are very proud of is that not only about our wonderful Gurukula system, but probably, arguably, the first universities were in India, right? We know that there we have several universities. We talk about 14 universities which existed in ancient India, out of which Nalanda and the Takshashila are the most popular ones. But of course, we had Vallabhi, Pushpagiri, I mean, Somapura, I mean, so many institutions, universities were there. What is university means? University meant exchange of knowledge between civilizations. So it is not only localized, but because the universality of the education made it into a university. So Nalanda University, Takshashila University, etc., had visitors coming from different parts of the world, from different civilizations. So there was a lot of cross-pollination of knowledge. Okay, there was a lot of growth of knowledge because of these intellectuals discussing in these universities. So very important that I think we are very proud that we had some of the best universities in the world at that time. So now let's look at what were the professions during that time. The professions in ancient times were probably mostly agriculture because everybody wanted food. So agriculture has been the most important profession for a long time. Then, of course, they were all made up of small kingdoms. So there were people fighting with each other. So war was a very important profession. So a lot of people worked as soldiers. And then there are also craftsmen, because somebody had to make a pot, somebody had to make your shoes, somebody had to build a house, etc. So there were craftsmen. So the main professions were basically being agriculturist, then being a soldier, and also being a craftsman, right? So now, if you look at the pyramid of professions, you had landless workers, then you had land-owning farmers, artisans. As the pyramid goes on, the number of people went on becoming less. Then we had wealthy landowners and gentry, and then means respectable citizens. And then we had scholars and officials, a few number of scholars and officials. And on top of that, the emperor and the imperial court, right? So you see, when you look at the structure, most of these people who were doing these few professions, which were needed at that time, they were learned by their family tradition. Okay, the grandfather would be a carpenter, his son would also be a carpenter, then his grandson would also be a carpenter. So it came, the whole skills and the ability of the people went down with in the family trait. But only a few people need formal education, because this came by trade, so they didn't need education. The education was at home itself. But you know, the scholars and the officials and the emperor and the imperial court, they needed formal education, because otherwise they wouldn't learn the kind of jobs they had. They couldn't have learned with the kind of experiences they would get in their own life. So they wanted formal education where other knowledge was also given to them. Several more knowledges were given to them. And that is why only few needed a formal education. Other got it through family professions and traditions, right? So this happened in the ancient times. But everything started changing. Okay, the whole system started changing from what we call as the Industrial Revolution 0.0. Okay, this was by the invention of the printing press by Gutenberg, right? Johannes Gutenberg was a goldsmith in Germany. He wanted the Bible to be spread very efficiently all over the place. So he wanted to because Bible was again spread by the word of mouth, and so there were a lot of distortions in the Bible. So he said that I should make a printing press, so the same thing what I want to say goes around, etc. So literacy had also become very important at that time. So he made this beautiful printing press by using dyes from plants and building a small machine which could print many, and it was mechanically working. So somebody would sit and roll, and you would make this print a lot of these copies of these materials. And obviously, okay, you can see here, and I think we all remember such printing systems, which a lot of people were there, and they needed expertise in putting what we called as the typesetting. Every letter would be put together, arranged, and then made into a mold, and then the mold, then put ink onto that and print, etc. So printing presses involve a lot of people, but there are no people trained in printing presses because those professions did not exist earlier. So now new professions started coming. So when new professions started coming, obviously new trainings had to be done, because people to do typesetting for a printing press, they needed different skills which they were not used to. So there were trainings which were arranged for that. But now you look at these printing presses, okay, it's absolutely technology controlled. Okay, technology controlled here, as you can see here. So, I mean, there is one person who can come and program, and it can print your whole Times of India for the whole country, right? It can print 80 lakhs copies per day, anything of that sort, because you see, number of people involved in the printing presses has reduced enormously. But the efficiency of the printing, or the quality of the printing, and the distribution of the printing, and the number of the printing went on increasing, and that could be replaced by technology. Okay, now this was somewhere in the 15th century, but now let's come to the Industrial Revolution 1.0. This was somewhere in the 18th century. Okay, in the 18th century, suddenly there was a very important invention which is called as the steam engine by James Watt. The 18th century steam engine, which is called as gave a new revolution, because now it started producing, okay, industries which made vehicles which could carry people in large numbers from one place to another, and also carry heavy goods from one place to the other. So the mean free path of the people increased, right? They would travel from one place to the other, faraway places. Earlier, they found jobs in their own place, in their own comfort zone, but now they had to move outside. And then, and so people started moving. And when people moved from one place to the other, the requirements from people were different. They wanted to adjust to their culture, to the traditions. Not only that, how would a person who wants to employ you in the other job would know that you know the knowledge? So then you had certification became important, that somebody has to certify that you are qualified. So once you needed a certification, then it needed a training and a certification, which became the style of schools. So the schools became started giving formal education, and because the jobs were very limited, they were trained only for that particular jobs. But now you see the train engine looks very few people in the industry. You don't have so many people, right? Another big change was by Henry Ford, right? Henry Ford, when he started manufacturing his cars, the Ford cars, it started bringing this assembly system. Right, you had an assembly system that the car would move on a conveyor belt, and every expert at each point would do a particular job. He would do that and push the car forward, and somebody expert would take up the job from there. So like that, it started going from it. See, again, now you wanted specialists. Means you wanted somebody would tighten only the brakes, somebody would put only the steering, somebody would put the clutch, somebody would put the wheels. So you needed specialized experts who are very efficient in understanding this. So they wanted people who could read and write and carry instructions which were given to them. So this kind of a change, okay, brought it. You all remember this beautiful movie? I'm sure you must have seen this movie. Shantanuji, have you seen this movie, Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times? Yeah. Okay, I'm sure Shantanuji is busy on the telephone. It's okay. I'm sure you have all seen this beautiful movie called Charlie Chaplin Modern Times, which explained which was a satire on the Industrial Revolution and the kind of mechanical life which people were led to in those times of early 19th century. The Charlie Chaplin's picture, especially the last one, do you remember? Vidyasagar ji or Rajiv Pillai madam, you would have remembered this picture if you have seen that. Otherwise, please see this. It's one of the most entertaining pictures of all times. Okay, of how a machine which would make us eat, which would make the workers eat, etc. So this was the Henry Ford's revolution, which again gave this concept of conveyor systems. Okay, conveyor systems and assembly lines. So it produces specialized people. They wanted everybody to do that particular job, and they were trained. So ultimately, at that time, the education which was given was called as Education 1.0. So this was Industrial Revolution 2.0, but we had what was called as Education 1.0, which is basically, you see this very interesting picture. They were made, people were made for the kind of jobs which are available, right? So in the question that even if your head was a triangle or a pentagon or a square or a hexagon, etc., the teacher would put them through something called as schooling and make everybody's head circular, right? Means in the sense that they all were trained for a particular job. So they had a fixed syllabus, fixed examination system, fixed way of recruiting people. Everything was fixed, which is probably what we have even today. Okay. So it's very important that we ultimately trained everybody to look the same. Okay. They wanted and if they don't look the same, we were telling that that person is not intelligent, that he's not smart enough, right? Only those people whose brain, whose everybody became with a circular head were called as intelligent at that time. So now, friends, very important. This was 1.0 because that was the requirement of the Industrial Revolution at that time. Okay. Now you see, now look at the car manufacturing, right? Amazing. You look at this. Okay, I read that Toyota produces about 40,000 cars every day in one factory. In one factory, it produces 40,000 cars. And there's nobody inside the factory. Okay, there is somebody sitting outside controlling the computer, okay, and the robotics, and started, and you see here, ultimately the welding, the conveyor belt, everything happens. And 40,000 cars in one day, my friends. You can imagine how many cars how many seconds one car takes in making this. So everything, welding, painting, fixing, everything is done by machines, by robotic control systems. So obviously, now the education required had to be different. So this, we call it as the Industrial Revolution 3.0, and it started giving the Education 2.0. So you see, what I'm trying to tell you is that the education was preceded by industry. The industrial requirements decided what kind of education which was required in a system. So, so we had the first, second, third, and fourth revolution, industrial revolution, which were for different machines. One was by the steam engine, then the car assembly, then the robotics, and then the internet control. What we called is the 21st century is the internet or the computer controlled industry which exists. So now, accordingly, we also started following education 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, tried to follow one education system to the other, so that we would suit the requirements of the industry or the society which was changing because of the industry. Okay, so now you see here. So aligning the industrial requirements with education was done by several important people. I'm just showing you a few people there who contributed to this these kind of understanding and changing. Okay, so you started again. I don't want to go into the details, but just give you that idea that the society, the revolution, and the technology decided the kind of education one needs to have. It not only affected the science and industry and the technology, it also affected commerce. It affected business, it also affected humanities, maybe even languages, Kannada, English, everything has changed with time because of these requirements from the industry. Okay, so now you see, meaning of education itself has changed. So I have education 1.0 here, 2.0 and 3.0. Again, I don't want to go into the details of this table, but it's very interesting. In education 1.0, meaning was it was dictated education. Means the teacher dictated the education and they were supposed to do what it is. Then education 2.0 was socially constructed because it was a requirement of the society which decided what kind of education should be given. And the education 3.0, which is supposed to be existent in some of the good institutions in the world, okay, they are not only socially constructed but contextually reinvented. So depending on the context, the education is reinvented. Okay, earlier the teaching is done from the teachers to the student, which also exists in our case even now. And then it is also not only from teacher to teacher, but also teacher to student, and teacher to student, but also from student to student. So now in education 2.0, we have to involve the student teaching other students also. It is not only the teachers to the student. Then education 3.0, which is already started in some of the developed countries, which tells us not only teacher to student, student to student, student to teacher, people to technology, technology to people, and so it's almost everywhere. So it is called as constructivism. So the education 1.0 was called as behaviorism, and then you have constructivism, and in between there are several other pedagogical methods. And earlier the schools were only in the bricks, in buildings, like all the wonderful institution I see behind Shantanuji. Okay, the picture of the institution behind him, such were there. But now in education 2.0, we already also started in the building plus online also. Like it has started because of COVID, we also all started online education. So online has become a part of our educational pedagogy now, educational system. So this is very important. And then ultimately it has to become everywhere. Now the education will go everywhere. It need not become an institution in your institution. It can happen in pubs, in cafes, in bowling alleys, in markets, everywhere the education can start taking place. It's very interesting, right? So now the question is, how do we think about it? And the teachers earlier were licensed professionals, right? In the first education 1.0, like all of us, we were all licensed professionals who were allowed to teach. But later, I'm sure slowly it will become so dispersed and so hyper dispersed that everybody and everywhere become a source of information and knowledge. Because information is available in everybody's hand now. A mobile phone, a laptop, or a computer gives you the world's information at your fingertips. Okay, that's why they used to call us, he has every knowledge at fingertips. We didn't know what it means. Now we know what it means, because a mobile phone can give you all the information, right? So earlier, the industry viewed graduates as assembly line workers. So it means they will come here, work in the industry, they will do what we tell them to do, and that's it. Okay, and then ultimately now slowly things are changing because the kind of jobs are changing. Now they are ill-prepared assembly line workers. So they are not trained in education systems. We don't train them. That's why I said we don't have enough skills to go to the industry, right? And then because of the knowledge economy, there's the economy is changing from a mechanical energy, economy, to a knowledge economy. Okay, and now, so what happens is now the graduates become co-workers or entrepreneurs. The co-workership and entrepreneurship is going to become more important than becoming workers under somebody else. So this is how education is changing. Okay, so now friends, so look at this. This picture is amazing. You see, this is what is called as education 3.0. Now the teacher is nowhere, right? He's sitting just on the side. Now the knowledge is coming from, the learner becomes a content producer and a sharer. The social network connects people, right? Then open access to information because it's all available on the internet. Then learner as a connection maker, means you learn by connecting with people. And the web is the curriculum, right? So knowledge comes from your internet. It doesn't come from your textbooks anymore. It can come from the internet. Then the diversity of the network is amazing. Then access to experts. Earlier, our experts were only our teachers. But now it's not necessary. I can connect with anybody in Harvard University. I can sit in Dharwad and connect with anybody in Harvard University. I can connect with anybody in Cambridge. I can connect with Sheshadripuram College, experts in the Sheshadripuram institutions. So like that, the connection also becomes so diverse, so difficult, and so broad, right? So learners also become teachers, and teachers also become learners. And this is a huge change, which we cannot perceive because we are used to a certain kind of system, and this change is necessary. It is not because, because somebody thinks it is important, because it is inevitable. The kind of changes which are happening in the society makes this kind of a changes inevitable to all of us. So and look at India. India, obviously, the big change was the new economic policy in 1991. Right? We started looking at everything was different. Now, this included three important things. The new economic policy was consisted of three important. One is liberalization, second is privatization, and the third is globalization. This factor among the liberalization and privatization, another most important factor was the globalization. Now, what it means by globalization is that I make education, for example, which is a part of the service industry, okay, with so many other things which are there, which are related to globalization. Okay, I wanted my education system to be comparable to another education system somewhere else in the world. So how do I do this? How can I, because globalization involved foreign companies coming and investing in educational institutions in India, or maybe right now we saw Sheshadripuram institutions only in Karnataka, but probably they will start one in New York, okay, probably one in Tokyo. Okay, it is possible. But if we want to do that, we need an equivalence of the quality of education, right? We need to measure. There should be some measure. See, you remember, all of us, we know about NEP, right? You know, NEP troubles us so much. all the teachers are troubled with NAC, the principals, the management is also troubled by NAC, because once the NAC comes, everything else stops. For 3 months, all the teachers are doing only NAC work and not anything else, because NAC is because it becomes a common measure for educational institutions. So you can get, because otherwise each individual institutions behaved in a separate way. But now to bring that uniformity, NAC became very important. And this was again a consequences of the new economic policy, that we wanted to have equivalence of systems everywhere, right? So the educational system itself in India changed from 1991, and then there was a lot of growth in the GDP, as we saw in the first curve also. So now, because of this, see, I mean, contrary to what people think, education policy has been constantly changing in India. In the 1948-49, University Commission, Education Commission was set up, right? In 52-53, the secondary education and Mudliar was set up. In a very important stage of this was 1964 to 66, when DS Kothari Commission was there, and that led to the first new national education policy in 1968. Okay, based on the Kothari Commission, and then we had, as per the, then there were many powers were given for education. Then NEP, second response was happened in 1986. Then we had evaluating with the program of action, and then the TSR Subramaniam committee report was there. Okay, after 2016, which led to the Kasturi Rangan's new education policy. So you see, my friends, as our economy started changing, we also changed. And the economy changed, education changed the economy, because we wanted to become relevant to the world. Okay, so now you see again the path of the education, new education. I don't want to go into this loaded slide here, but I just want to tell you the timelines of the implementation policy is not now. It cannot be done in 1 year. It is supposed to become complete by 2040. Right? We have still about 18 years to go to implement this very effectively. And so there are so many things which are we are at a second stage in this one. So the national curriculum framework for teacher education has been formed several years ago. So I'll come to that in a little bit of while, but let me go here. Let me jump this also. Okay. Now let us see, in your college, every student becomes a graduate. So what are the attributes a student should have when he completes the college, when he becomes a graduate? The most important things are these 4 abilities. It is not whether he knows physics, chemistry, mathematics, or sociology or anything. What is important is, does the child, the graduate, have the ability to think independently? And the second thing is, does the graduate have the ability to communicate effectively? So you may think something, but unless you communicate with others, you don't refine your thinking or you modify your thinking. Okay, so communication is also equally important. Then not only that, communicating, it's not about just end in all, right? Education is a process which is a lifelong learning. The graduate should understand that he or she should develop continuously, and it is about lifelong learning. It is not only just about getting a degree or it's the end of it. And more than all this, or complementary to all of this, is to act responsibly. Act responsibly means, what are the ethics as a society? Because you become a citizen, you become a leader, you become the professional after you graduate, and you should be a responsible graduate. You should become a responsible person. So what are the ethics? What are the traditions? What are very important to be in a society? They also have to learn this. To do this, you also need many things. You need a work and a career. Then you need academics, the knowledge of the academics, your expertise in something. Then you have to relate your knowledge with your society and community. If you don't relate the academics with the society and community, it becomes irrelevant, right? So very important that these are the attributes which are learned. So we need to think about it. Are we in our education system making every student of ours, not only few students, but every student of ours, can we make them to think independently, to communicate effectively, to develop continuously, and to act responsibly with the domain knowledge which they build, and with their ability to get a profession, a work and a career. They need a job to do that, and then how do they connect their knowledge with the society and community? Okay, now there are many more attributes, okay, which we require. It means all these attributes will lead to the adaptability. The student should, the graduate should become adaptable to the system, because until the graduate is protected by his parents, by his teachers, by his institutions, but ultimately when they go into the real world, they need to adapt to the circumstances, build to have self-confidence, Confidence is not a simple word, because you need so many factors to become confident in life. So do they build that confidence? Otherwise, confidence will become arrogance. We don't want confidence to become arrogance, right? So confidence, what are the parameters which are required to make a person confident when he becomes a graduate? Then how do they become creative? Creativity is one very, very loosely used complex word. Everybody talks about creativity, but exactly nobody knows what is creativity, right? So how do we make our children creative? How do we understand what is creativity is another challenge. And not only that, they also have to develop the credibility. Whenever a graduate says something, he or she should have, people should respect it and value it, and because it has the credibility, they know that he is talking the correct thing. He cannot come and talk the loose thing after he becomes a graduate. So, and understand, my friends, it's important for students to develop the adaptability to the system, the confidence to take on his own life, then become creative and also become credible, right, and acceptable in the society. I think these are the graduate attributes which are necessary. And of course, for these, many things, are the skills and techniques and attitudes and mindsets are required for this one. Of course, they need to know subject knowledge and professional skills. Then they should also know the ability of research and creativity and innovation in scholarship. Then they should learn how to work in teams and do collaborations. Then again, as I said, some lifelong learning. Then they should understand their role as global citizens. So global citizenship is a very important thing. Then employability and career development, of course, is the most important thing. They need to have a life so that they can also run the life. And also they get the freedom to think and do more because of a quality of life they can get. And then also you need personal abilities like becoming intellectuals, professionals, autonomous and astute human beings, right? They should also have the financial literacy. Every student should know how to manage his finances, not only his finances, but also for the societal finances. Then it should be ethical, socially and professionally understanding and responsible person. And again, as I said, also the communication and information literacy. Now, when we talk about information literacy, it has become much broader. Now it is not only about the information you have, but also the computer literacy and the internet literacy. So how you will have to do this, what are called as, computer, literacy is a different field of work, which we all have to know now in the future world, right? So now, right now, in our present classes, students almost appear like this, right? Somebody is sleeping, and here in the below cartoon here, the teacher is telling, oh, well, my fellow friends, I'm sure the lecture has made you think. So he thinks he has given a great lecture, but look at what the students are talking. My God, when this poor guy will stop here? Somebody is sleeping. Somebody says, hey, I want to go to the toilet. Somebody is telling, I want to go to a movie. Okay, he's thinking about girlfriend in his classroom, etc., etc. But nobody is paying to the attention. But the teacher thinks that he has given a good class, right? Teacher always goes on thinking that I have given a wonderful class. But the reality is not about teaching. It is about learning. Have the student learn. There's a small, a man was walking on the road with his new dog. He was taking a new dog, and his friend met him and asked him, hey, did you buy a new dog? Which breed is it? How much does it cost? Etc. etc. After that, he says, hey, this is a very intelligent dog. He says, so what have you taught him? So that fellow said, we all know shake hand, roll, bark, these things are there. But this fellow said, I've taught him to whistle. So this friend of his got a bit amused. I've never seen a dog whistle, right? So what is so, how is it? So he asked him, okay, whistle, whistle, whistle. The dog doesn't whistle. So the friend said, hey, you said that you taught him to whistle, but he's not whistling. He said, I taught it, but he did not learn. What can I do? Right? So that is the kind of education we are going through. The teachers think that we have completed the syllabus, but the students have not learned what they are supposed to learn. And this is very, very important, my friends, because we always talk about covering the syllabus. Isn't it, Shantanuji? We talked about how do we cover the syllabus? I keep asking this question, what is so obscene about the syllabus, or what is so dirty about the syllabus that we are trying to cover it? So I am trying telling, please don't cover the syllabus, please open the syllabus to the students. And that will make a lot of difference in the education system we are going in. So obviously then the people started thinking, oh, there must be a different way of teaching, how to make it interesting, how to make it enjoyable, and how do we make every student learn what we are trying to do. See, the teacher will not be satisfied unless the students have learned. The pleasure in the teacher is not by his teaching, But when he knows that all his students have learned what he has taught, he or she has taught, and what he or she has learned, and not only that, how it helps their life and how they become useful to the society, etc., etc. That pleasure is what we should start looking at. So pedagogy becomes very important. So all this is possible. So as I said, the knowledge warriors, okay, your field of action is your classroom. So how do we effectively perform in a classroom depends on how successful we are as teachers. So very important. There are several stories of pedagogical theories, which I will not go into the details, but just I'll tell you that now what we require is not a sage on stage. Now we are all like sages on stages, standing on the stage. Inside the classroom, there are students sitting in front of us, and we are telling them, now we are going on lecturing, and they are supposed to listen and understand and think. Right. So unfortunately, it doesn't happen. Now we have realized that now the teacher has to become a guide on the side. So now you have groups of students learning between themselves while the teacher guides them how to learn between each other. So this kind of a complete change in scenario is necessary for education 2.0. As you all can realize by up to now what I've spoken, you know that we have only reached stage 1.0, education 1.0. And maybe we have not even reached stage 2.0. Now with COVID, a little bit of 2.0 because of the online communication. But more importantly, we need to adopt other techniques which are necessary for 2.0. Okay, so again, now we have what our class, instead of the traditional classrooms, we need flipped classrooms. So how to make education in such a different way so that our students become relevant to the future of the society, I think is very, very important. Then there are several aspects in this. A lot of education is necessary to understand this, but I won't go into the details of telling a lot of people who have contributed to the organization, education, philosophy, cybernetics, linguistics, psychology, social anthropology. A lot of people like Bloom, Asubel, Brunner, Piaget, Devi, okay, Firhold, etc. have contributed to these knowledges, and so several pedagogies are there. Now, very important for every teacher to understand the pedagogical systems and try to use them according to the necessity so that their teaching becomes effective. Teachers have all the knowledge, but what is the use if they cannot utilize the knowledge to make it effective in teaching and communicate and reach every student in their life? I think that is very, very important. Okay, so now again, 21st century pedagogy, so many things are there. Every teacher who dares to teach should know all these things. In my view, a teacher should know that there are different pedagogies, and not only that, they should know the ability to utilize the pedagogy inside their classrooms. So each topic, each thing you are telling, you can use a different pedagogy to make it more effective, right? So very important that we need to develop those kind of pedagogies, and it is not only one pedagogy, it is every simple topic, every 10 minutes probably you can use a different pedagogy in teaching. That is when you will become very effective and very important. Okay, now education and it's a teaching learning experience, right? It is based on an axis of patients in a socio-cultural context, and it involves structural part, a curricular part, a relationship part, and a personal part. So are we thinking, are we putting all these factors into our curriculum, right? To bring a structural change, curriculum stage, a relational stage, and the personal stage is very, very important. Okay, now you see, every human being can be classified into three parts. One, the head part, okay, where we think, where the knowledge, what we call as knowledge, we can call it as the head part. Then second is the three H's, the head, the heart, and the hands. And the heart part, which means basically emotionally connected, but of course we know by science that everything, even the emotion is in the brain itself, but temporarily we'll call it as heart. So we have a head, then we have a heart, and then we have hands to do things. The thing which the head does is called as cognitive, right? So you have logic, you have cognition, you have understanding, etc. is through the head. But then the heart is called as the affective domain. So affective domain is when it deals with feelings, with emotions. And we should understand our brain, which is made of two parts, shows us very clearly that we are extremely emotional people. Okay, though we don't want to be called as emotional, but all of us are emotional. Shantanuji is there doing wonderful work because he is emotional, right? He has an emotional connect with what he wants to do. So all of us should connect our cognitive domain with our affective domain. Only then we can do some wonderful things, okay, like do things, and doing things is called as the psychomotor, or the hands which are doing. So how do we connect our brain to our heart to our hands is the most important way a teacher should perform, right? So my friends, let me go here. So there are so many things: the cognitives, the psychomotor, and the affective domains, and different levels of how we grow in each of them. I'll not go into the details, but I request teachers to know all these things, because we dare to teach. Once we dare to teach, we should not cease to learn all these aspects, which are very important, as Radhakrishnan said. Okay, now see, one thing I just want to tell you, that cognitive neurology is also a very important thing. Only if we know how we learn, we'll know how to teach. So I just don't want to go into the details, but just tell you, we should understand the brain, okay, if we want to teach. And we want to understand why different people behave in different ways, so that we can teach exactly, so that every student tries to understand. This, I'll jump this. So based on this, what is called as neural networks, because that is how the neurons connect with each other, and the information is the neural networks. This is the curve. This is a very interesting curve. Please spend a little bit of concentration on this curve. On the x-axis is the effort we make for learning, okay, and on the y-axis is the knowledge which is acquired. When we put the effort, the knowledge increases. We know that, but we wrongly think that this curve is a linear curve. We think that more effort we put, the more knowledge we gain. But actually, this curve is not a linear curve. It is not a linear curve. It is sigmoidal. I'll give you 20 seconds to focus on this curve. What does it mean? Please think about it on your own. See this curve, the red curve, which is a sigmoidal curve. Please look at this curve and see that this is how learning takes place, because this is how my brain works. So everybody's brain is similar and it works in a similar way. So obviously the teaching is a sigmoidal curve. Means you see this, watch this. You put a lot of effort, but no knowledge is there. But after some time, you put a little bit of effort and a lot of knowledge grows. This is very, very important, that this is how we learn. This is how we learn. And so this is how we should teach. Okay, so we cannot think that it's linear and think that after 25% syllabus is covered after 50% of the time, 50% is covered, 75%, and then 100%. And in examination, you expect everybody to know 100% of what you taught. But then in reality, we learn only so much. If we just attend our classes, and if we don't understand this learning curve, the amount of learning is only about 10 to 15% from our students. So every class I have attended, you have attended, I have taught, and you have taught, the students can gather only 10 to 15% of the information. So ultimately, to get that 100% marks, they need to do a lot of by hearting. They have to do a lot of other things. They have to go to tuitions. They have to get by heart things. They have to stop doing all the other things which a youth should do and start studying if they want to score 100% marks. So you see, our students who score 100% marks have lost their social life. And that, I think, is a terrible thing to do. But if the teachers knew what is the pedagogical methods, that the curve is sigmoidal, I think we can teach in a very different way, where students don't have to go home and study. They can learn everything in the class itself. So this is the dream which we all have, that one day we will also be able to teach something like this, which is very important. So anyway, so I just want to tell you, every class is like that. So this curve is the one which defines what to do. And obviously the Bloom's level learning, I'm sure several of you have come across this picture, very important. There are different levels with it. This does not mean that you can learn the second one only after you get the other one. But you can also parallel run this, but ultimately we have to go from the remembering level to the understanding level, to being able to apply it somewhere, then analyze it, and then evaluate it, how good it is. And then only we get what is called as creativity. Okay, the creativity cannot be taught. You can teach these things: remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, and evaluate. You teach them, but ultimately that leads automatically to creativity among students. So this is something we need to understand very well. And please look at this curve also. You look at our education system, our examination system, and the kind of classrooms we have and the students. We have just crossed. It is at the remembering level, and very little in the understanding level, and there's hardly anything at the applying level. But how do we take the students along this hierarchical pyramid is challenging for us. Okay, so friends, and then there is another interesting thing, Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence theory. Now people don't accept something called as one IQ. Means intelligence quotient is not one parameter, but it has got different kinds of parameters. Means some people are intelligent in the sense that cognitive, their cognition is spatial, means they can only visualize the word. Only when they visualize something, they will able to understand. Then some are linguistic, they get to understand when there is when they hear. And then there is some people who do by introspection, sit intrapersonal. And then you have some people or some intelligences where you learn something by talking to people, then some by logic, some by pitch and tone in a rhythmic way, and that is called as a musical intelligence. And then you have bodily kinesthetic, so something which moves your body, people learn by that. So now each of us have all these intelligences for different degrees. So all of us have these different degrees. So it is not about that the body kinesthetic person should become a sportsman, not necessary, but he can learn physics through body kinesthetics. So how do we do these kind of activities? And everything is something which is very, very important for us to understand. So every teacher should know that when you stand in front of 50 students, there are some with different kinds of intelligence which are more dominant. So when that differences are different, I cannot teach in only one single way. I have to address different kinds of people in different ways, and only then I can become a successful teacher. Okay, that is very important for us to understand. Okay, so now again, I don't want to talk about this. There is another important thing, you know, that what are called as happy chemicals, the serotonin, the dopamine, the oxytocin, the endorphins, etc., etc. This we call as the mood chemicals, right? We all talk about mood. Today I have a mood to give my lecture. Today I have a mood to study. I don't have a mood. Today my mood is to go and play outside. So these moods depend on these kind of neurotransmitters. So if we don't understand how these neurotransmitters are operating in our brain, it is very difficult to understand the mood of the student. So we cannot create a mood by forcing them to do it, right? So that is why what happens is the students are sitting in our class, but they're not, they're somewhere else because they don't have the mood. So how the teacher has to create the mood inside the class is also terribly, terribly important. As I said, we need a different kind of classrooms, as I talked about. So now you see, this is another thing very interesting. Okay, I mean, it looks like I'm talking something outside the NEP, but I'll come back to the NEP. But this is very important to understand what NEP is all about. See, this is the learning pyramid. See, when you give a lecture, only 5% of that becomes students learn. And if the students read, then they get 10% of the knowledge. Audiovisual gives you 20%. If you do a demonstration, 30% of the learning happens. If they discuss among them, 50% of the knowledge happens. If they practice doing something, then they get 75% of the knowledge. And when the students teach others, then you get 90% of the knowledge. Okay, you all as teachers agree that we learned more when we were teaching rather than when we were studying. When we were students, we were bad students, but when we became teachers, we learned so many things. So please understand, we need to include all these methods in our teaching methods. How to give a lecture, where to give a lecture, where to make them read, how do we bring audiovisuals into our class, how do we make demonstrations, how do we conduct discussions between students, how do we make them practice, and how do we make them teach each other. The peer learning, which is also very, very important, right? So friends, this is very important. So now you see here, there are cognitive skills, the affective skills, and the psychomotor skills, and all of them have to be supported in our classroom. Only then every child will be able to get not only that, they will be able to learn so much in your classroom that they don't have to go home and study. They can do other beautiful things, right? Like art, dance, drama, enjoy their youthful life and become wonderful citizens, also do a lot of social service, sports, everything they can do if we can make it so effective in our classrooms. Okay, now again, we talk about multidisciplinarity, but there are we don't understand what it is. So our education system should include interdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity, cross-disciplinarity, interdisciplinarity, and transdisciplinarity. And these are all different and all different kinds of methods to include these kind of education which are there. So how do we bring all this in our classroom, makes it very, very effective? So we have to think about our subject domain, the physics, chemistry, and the biology and economics and commerce, but we need to think about how to bring all this into our education, which is very, very important for the students to understand and become relevant to the society, right? And that is why there is an importance of the new education policy. This change in the globalization, in the world situation, in the world scenario, where you want equivalences, you want to compare, you want to measure, and the industrial change which is taking place, the job market which is changing, the society which is changing place, with all the technology coming, with all the computerization coming, with a lot of knowledge becoming more important than skills, okay, then hands-on ability, then labor. Okay, how do we use these knowledge skills, which are different from the manual skills which we had earlier? So how to bring that is very important. So thanks to the government of India, which brought in the new education policy 2020, right? Some of the major reforms here in the education policy are because they want to achieve, you remember that our gross enrollment ratio is only about 26%. By 2035, we want 50%. But as I told you, in the Western world, okay, it is 95%. So still long way to go. By 2035, if we can get a 50% gross enrollment, why are not people joining? Because they are not finding it useful to come into education, right? They may not get a job after education. So if they cannot get the job after education, why will people? They have to earn their living. They are poor. There were many people who are poor who don't want to earn their living. So how will they come to the education? How do we make the education so attractive that all of them will come and stay and continue the education? You know, I deal with a lot of government colleges in rural areas. Okay, education is given to girls only up till their marriage and until their marriage is fixed. Once the marriage is fixed, they stop education, right? All the competence of people will go because we are not giving a relevant education which is there. So that's why we need to give holistic and multidisciplinary education, which is a flexibility. So now what it means is now, you know, the undergraduate program becomes 4 years. You can either do it for 3 years or 4 years. Then the PG people who do 4 years of undergraduate program can do only 1 year of PG, and people who do 3 years of program, if they want to do a PG, can do it for 2 years. Then there is an integrated 5-year bachelor's and master's degree, so you can actually complete a PhD, a master's degree in just 5 years. Okay, with 3 and 2 years. Then MPhil is removed. You also know this. Then there is a credit transfer and academic bank credits, which I'll come in a minute. But very interesting that you see there is so this picture. So now you have this picture under the NEP. After the first year, also the student can exit with a certificate. After the second year, you can exit with a diploma. After the third year, you can exit with a degree. Now think about this. When I say certificate and exit with a certificate, why would one want to exit? Right? Unless they have a particular skill, unless they have some personal problems. Okay, personal problems or finding it difficult for education or anything of that sort. Otherwise, everybody will continue to do a degree. But if they have a particular skill, which they can, when they go out, they can utilize the skill to get a job, it will be very interesting. So how do we give the first year some particular skill which can give a living for the children? And how do we give after second year a diploma where they have slightly more skills, abilities than in the certificate course? Then the third year degree is an expert in that particular field. So you have a physics degree or a chemistry degree or a science degree or a commerce degree. Then you have an overall picture of all the degrees which are there. Then you want to go to now what is introduced by this by the new education policy is a 4th year degree, an honors degree. So you can either do honors, the 4th year honors degree by research, or you can do it without research. When you do without research, it is like doing your first year masters, right? So you can see after the third degree, you can also do a 2-year masters. With this curve, you can go here directly do a masters, or you can do a 4th year with your honors degree or with your no research honors degree. And if you do your 4th year honors degree, directly you can go for a PhD, right? You don't have to do masters at all if you can do by research. And if one does 4th year of honors degree, then they can go directly to the 5th year of master's degree. So when you complete the 4 years, you can directly go for 1 year master's degree, and there is no MPhil which is necessary because you have been trained about this in your 4th year itself. And then it leads to a PhD degree. So this is the structure of the higher education, which you are all aware of. But very interestingly is, how do we make this relevant? How do we understand and how do we help the children utilize this kind of a flexibility which is there? And of course, others reforms which are indicated is credit transfers. Means I don't have to study all my subject in one college. right? I have a good teacher in another college. I can go and complete my course there, get the credit from there and add it to my knowledge, because ultimately it is student who is important, right? And then all these credits where you collect in which places, etc., will be kept in an academic bank of credits, which will be linked to the Aadhaar card. So ultimately, everybody's credits are defined. So you can go and take one credit in Lucknow, or 40% of the credits you can take from the MOOCs, from the internet. Okay, so many courses you can take, and if they are equivalents, if your institutions gives you equivalents, that can all be utilized to get a degree from wherever you want. And then the new education policy plans to have teaching intensive universities and some as research intensive universities, because we want to increase the quality of teaching in some places where research may not be so essential, but there are some places where research will become very essential. So the question means where you want to do international quality of research, so that funding can be given for research in those institutions. And degree colleges will all become autonomous degree colleges, so they can make their own decisions of what they require for their particular child. So this kind of a freedom is there. So since the education, okay, should have core subject knowledge, experiential learning, research experience for undergraduate, soft skills, the technical skills, value and ethics, plus they can also leave after first year, second year, third year, and fourth year. A rough plan of how the curriculum would look like you will have a lot of skills in the first year. You see here 50% for soft skills and languages, and 30% for technical skills. Then you have 50% for the core knowledge, where you have major and minor courses occupying 30% of the knowledge, 35%, and experiential learning, which means practicals and fieldwork, which will consume about 15% of the knowledge. Then as you go up, the soft skills and the technical skills become lesser and lesser, and the importance of the core knowledge increases. By the time you complete your third year, you have enough expertise, enough knowledge, the general knowledge about your particular core experience. But then when you come to the fourth year, okay, you can become a real expert in one particular expertise. That is what it's called. It's like you want to become a physics honors, or you want to become an economics honors, or anything you can do, where you have 90% of the time is used for your subject and very little for technical skills and soft skills, which actually help your knowledge. So this is the structure of a degree college. Okay, the typical structure for the curriculum. Of course, there are many minor things which depend on how the curriculum has been decided, or how your university wants to do it, because of the timetable problems, because of the workload problems, etc., etc. These can be connected. Okay, so this is what this picture is all about. So now you see here. So the elements of the OBEs. Okay, so it is based on outcome-based education. What is outcome-based education is nothing but a common sense which is well defined, in the sense that first you decide the outcome of an institution. Okay, once you define the outcome as outcome, what you want the students to learn, the graduate attributes and the capabilities for the student, then you define your curriculum. Then outcomes will design the curriculum, that will define the pedagogy and the syllabus, and then the assessment also should be linked. And only when you do the assessment, whether it has been, the outcome-based education has been implemented properly or not, you get what are called as the attainment of the outcomes with the direct and indirect. So there are so many ways of doing this. So you can give your outcomes and then you can do that. So with this, let me tell you that the new education policy wants the students to decide what to study, when to study, where to study, and how to study. But they are not competent on doing that, and that's why the teachers have a big role, a much bigger role than what they have earlier, to guide the students, to give them the freedom of choosing what they want to do, depending on their ability, their interest, and their professional skills, which can be developed according to that. So with this, my friends, this is the dawn of the student-centric education. The new education policy, which is outcome-based education, is the dawn of a student-centric education. So I'm hoping that, I'm very glad that the government of India started this, and I'm also very glad that the state of Karnataka has decided to take the first step, okay, to go into this. And as I said, this is not the end of it all. We learn many things as we go along. We will make, like all of us, we have all learned by doing mistakes. So the question is, but let the intention is there that we want to start something called as the new education policy. And as we go on putting steps, there'll be committees which will be looking at how the progress happens, and then redesign, redo it. And hopefully in the coming couple of years, we'll have a very, very well-defined new education policy, which is extremely student-centric, and student-centric in the sense that their adaptability to the system, their adaptability to understand and adaptable to the requirements of the industry, get jobs or become scholars or any other opportunity like this. So with this basic philosophy behind the outcome-based education, now I'll stop my talk here and probably will be happy to take some of the questions if are there. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks all of you for your patience of listening to me. Yeah. Yeah. Shantanuji, how do we take it forward?
Yes. So I request all the esteemed delegates. So if you have any question to put in the chat box so that I will read it for the sir and I'll ask him so that he can answer. So, sir, in fact, we were very delighted to listen to you that Industrial Revolution 0.0, 0.1, 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0 and 4.0 we have reached, but education still we are in 3.0.
No, we are in 1.0.
Okay.
Yeah. This is an opportunity to change to 2.0, but yeah. 3.0 is in some very top institutions in the world. But in India, we are still at 2.0. And that is why it is very, very important for us to change now. Yeah.
And we are really thankful that because as you have told that we have started our 1948, 1952, 64 Kothari, then Kasturirangan Commission. So where because of we could see the NEP, the light or the tunnel. We are just in the outside the tunnel as we in science we understand, and we have to still take further. And being teacher, I also would like to point here that yes, definitely we only feel you have correctly mentioned that always we are behind syllabus completion. So there is nothing to cover because in IITs, IIMs and topmost Purdue and US and UK, Germany, what they do or Australia, they keep it open. So that's how the student learn. And in fact, with your expertise and all that, whatever we are coming into discussion with the BOS meetings, definitely we'll go for the attributes which you have to develop. We should understand we are not creating just like machines. We are creating behavioral thinking, adaptability, confidence, creativity, credibility. So all attributes together, really we can think of if India could produce 100 years back, C.V. Raman.
That's
why
right.
not now?
Yeah. Why not hundreds of C.V. Ramans now?
Correct.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
And we know that if C.V. Raman would have been put in any part of the world without any facility, he would have designed his own instrument and he would have got, that is the IQ or multiple IQ he had. In fact,
Shantanu, you must be knowing, C.V. Raman never attended any class. Because he used to trouble the teachers with his knowledge inside the class. So teachers would tell, don't come to the class. Okay, if you don't come, it will be very good. So he spent most of the time outside reading or inside the laboratory and started doing things. So sometimes classes are detrimental to the growth of students, right? So very important. So we need to create this experiential learning is something what we need to bring. Yeah.
I don't think so that there is any questions.
Okay.
So really, sir, I feel it really the way you have presented the philosophy of NEP and we being the teacher, really we should understand that what kind of teachers, students we are going to produce or develop. And as you told, all those colleges becomes autonomous and much more role they have to play in building the society. And I think we are coming back to our traditional education system blended with the experiential and everything. That we understand that Nalanda kind of education system, India's oldest system and world used to come. And now we have to come out of our cocoon and then we have to carry forward the legacy what India had.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, I thought because from tomorrow you are having a lot of details, right? So yes. I thought once you are philosophically enrolled into this, I think now we can start thinking carefully how to put the details in place so that these philosophy or the graduate attributes are attained. So that's the idea. Yeah.
We now know as per the NEP, you have correctly told that mission, vision, and all those vision, mission, and objectives. Yes. So you have created the mission, vision, and objective. Now we have to do the work tomorrow and day after, whatever we do, or the further BOS meetings we do. And we must understand that mere teaching won't fulfill, won't create student with multiple IQs.
That's right. Sure.
So I am really thankful to you, sir, for making us understand what is behavioral, cognitism, constructive, social, contextual, experimental, flipped classroom, then the social life, as you have clearly told. Many students we see, they are top brilliant, but they don't have their social life. When it comes to the social issues, they are not able to solve it. They succumb to the pressure. So suicidal rate increases. They have never seen the failure. They have Thomas Alva Edison, because of whom we are seeing the bulb lights and all. So the letter, I need not to tell, everyone knows the letter, what the teacher sent, and like the C.V. Raman. So all experts, we know that they are born talented. Only we, the mentors, should determine or decide how to go ahead about it. So I, on behalf of Seshadipram Group of Institutions, a 90-year-old organization, wish you all the best. God bless you, sir. Thank you so much from bottom of our heart, and wish you that soon we see you in our campus for more engagement, more enlightenment, and more the way you have set right the moment or the momentum go ahead for tomorrow's program. It's really incredible. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Shantanas, and thank you for all the teachers who were patiently listened to me and tolerated my lecture. Obviously, I would have loved to make this very interactive and discuss with it, but virtually and the kind of time limitations which are limited, but probably one day we'll do it physically. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you.